Hi guys, I'm Kim Pangaro, and welcome to the Atomic Mommy Podcast. This is your podcast to understand everything and anything about parenting life, where each week I speak to special guests and cover even the most taboo of parenting topics. Before we dive in, remember you can find and follow the Atomic Mommy Podcast on iTunes and Spotify, or you can visit my website to listen in at www.atomicmommy.net. Now, let's get to it. Hi, Keri. Thank you so much for joining me. We spoke back and forth a little bit via email, and we're in the same state, so it's, nice to talk to someone from New Jersey. Um, so I have read a lot about what you do, and I think it's great what you do because what you're offering for parents especially is this way to connect in a totally different way than what we're normally used to in terms of how society teaches us how to go about therapy and things like that. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that and then explain to me how it works with the parents and the kids and how we do that.
Sure. So I have been doing this for 25 years, and my therapy style has definitely changed and evolved as I've learned more. And that's the best part about your job is that you constantly kind of transform based upon the needs. And I will tell you that in the last few years, things have changed so rapidly in the world of mental health. When I first started out, there was a lot of kids just with behavioral problems, with ADHD, some depression. We have shifted as a society to have a massive crisis on our hands when it comes to anxiety.
Okay.
I have so many kids in my office and they're all anxious to the point where they're almost frozen and can't function or do anything. So that's really what's pushed me so much to say, what is going on here? What has changed so much in this last few years? And what do we need to get back to? So I take a very holistic view of therapy. And I don't just talk about, okay, what are your symptoms and how do you feel? But it's also, what are your daily habits that are leading to these symptoms? And I think so often we forget about that. And even though when I say it, like, if they're not eating well, they're going to be grumpy. If they're not sleeping well, they're going to be, tired and irritable. And parents are always like, yeah, of course. I'm like, but they're not. But they're not eating well and they're not sleeping well. And they're spending too much time on social media and we're all disconnected.
Very
And
true.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's what needs to change. Like we need to get back to the basics. So during COVID, especially, life like blew up for mental health. COVID was horrendous
Yeah.
for mental health. So I couldn't get any more people like telehealth or in my office. Like I was so slammed with people. And so was every other therapist I knew. So that's why I started writing books about, daily habits. And I wrote Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know, because they needed the information in their hand to say, oh, okay, these are the steps we could take immediately to start transforming this. And I think it's something that in your gut as a parent, but then because of society and just our day-to-day life, we lose track of it.
It's funny that you say that because I am literally going through that right now. And so I have two older children. One is 18 and one is about to be 17. And then I have two younger ones. One's 10 and one's 8. And so a lot of the things I went through with my older two, all the anxiety, all the social media, um, I've sort of taken those lessons. And as sad as it sounds, I've taken what I've learned and applied it to my younger two to try to thwart the mistakes I made, not taking social media as seriously as I probably should have back then. And so now I see some, like my older ones struggle with some of their anxiety sometimes. So knowing how you approach that type of situation, what are some tips you could give parents to deal with that, especially at someone who's like 17, 18, who's, on the cusp of adulthood, doesn't really want to hear it anymore, you know?
Yeah. So I have a 17-year-old too, and I have, 17, and I have 4 children. So that's my oldest. So I also see how social media has changed just in the last few years with the kids as well. There's a piece of this where you need to be realistic as parents. You can't tell a 17-year-old necessarily you can't have social media,
True.
especially when even like sports and clubs and organizations are putting up updates on Instagram,
Yeah,
and
true.
they almost need it for school. So there's a reality piece to it, and then there's the other side of it. I always say, don't be the first. Don't ever give your kid that phone first or access to social media first, or even in the middle. Like, let your kid be the last. Let your kid
Okay.
be the last one to get everything. But there's also this point where everybody is making plans with their phones and texting each other, and it impacts your child socially. There is a reality to that if they don't have a phone or if they don't have Snapchat, which I can't stand, but that's how they communicate. But it's about, making sure that you really hold off as long as humanly possible before it then negatively impacts your children. Because again, there's a reality to it. We use this in our daily lives. But also you need to have household rules.
Mhm.
In my book, I always say, do not let electronics in the bedroom at night.
Very, very good tip.
And that even goes for my 17-year-old, because that also goes for me and my husband.
Yep. It's funny that you say that because not everybody realizes how much it plays a role now in almost every single aspect of our lives, our family life, our parenting life, our marital life, even our independent lives separately from our family. It's amazing how social media has completely transformed that landscape. And now we're all struggling with, anxieties, and we're wondering, what's the next update I need to do, and it never ends, and it never seems like we ever get back to that basic step, like just connecting one on one with someone. So
Right.
how do we how do we how do we organize ourselves in a way that lets us parent in a positive way? Even a 17-year-old, I know it's possible. I'm going through it now. It's more difficult and more rocky terrain, I'll say, but it is possible. So, what are some of the tips that you can give in that aspect? Because I could tell you right now, when I put my phone down, my kids see me, they absorb it, and so they want to do it too. But I feel like a lot of people don't realize that we're the first step.
So that's what I was about to say, is that we could preach it all we want. You have to role model it.
Yes, yes.
So, and it's funny because I say to kids at work all the time, I'm like, you got to put your phones down. It's so important. And they're like, well, my mom's playing Candy Crush all day long. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. She is.
Yeah,
So we have to model it as parents. We have to model that we're not always on our phone, that we're limiting our social media use, that we are able to enjoy a family vacation and just be together instead of taking all these pictures to post them online to show everybody where we
yeah.
are. Like, that's the type of things that you have to, really be mindful of.
And so you're basically saying that you need to combat that urge to share every waking moment of your life, right?
Yes, because we don't want our kids doing it. And if we don't want our kids doing it, we know that we shouldn't be doing it. And you have to, at the end of the day, ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Very good point. So, I'm assuming that you've asked yourself this question as well. I know I certainly have done it many times, sometimes multiple times a day. Like, what could I be doing better with my time than scrolling, right? So, how do you combat your urge? And then I'll tell you how I combat mine.
Yeah. So it's so interesting that you say urge, because you're right. These social media companies, they are so smart. I mean, they could suck all of us right in.
Yeah.
So we always have our phones with us. I always have my phone with me. That's just, part of life. I actually always download a book on my phone. So when I feel that urge, like, oh, waiting at a doctor's office for an appointment, instead of scrolling through social media, I start reading a book online. Like,
Wow.
I try to do something a little bit different, so I'm not on that. Also, in my car, when I'm going to pick up kids from anywhere, instead of scrolling on social media, I have books in my car,
Like physical books?
physical books, physical books. And the other thing that I started during pickup too, and people walk past my car and probably look like, what is she doing? I'll do a meditation app while I'm waiting 10 minutes for pickup.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. That's my
Yeah.
next step.
sit in your car for 10 minutes and meditate. So much better than scrolling on social media. Basically, anything that you're doing is going to be better than social media. And at home, what we do is we have an entire cabinet of family games. And we're always updating family games. And it's like, okay, let's pull this one out and let's play. And yes, it's harder to get the older ones involved, but they do want to connect. So they will do it if you really keep pushing it. But I think that right there is just, this concept of what else can I be doing rather than scrolling through my phone. And even for the kids I work with, I always say, download a book, read a few pages instead of just scrolling on social media.
So, you know, I have something similar. I haven't gotten to meditating, so that I'm trying for the next time to do that. I do have books on my phone like you do, just to try to pick up something other than scrolling because I felt like for so long I was with work and the podcast and Instagram, I was like constantly scrolling and I never had time to just be me, like the me before mom, the me before the work. So I wanted to take a step back. So I downloaded some books as well. I exercise more now. I try to go outside and sit in my hammock and lay in the sun for a little bit. Even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, I try to do that. And as far as my kids go, my younger two, I've gotten them to a point where I'm able to say, okay, you get an hour of digital and then we're done. Then you got to play together, play a game, art, it doesn't matter what it is, anything creative. So that this way they feel like they have an outlet. And then I just found that they function better now with less anxieties, especially with school. And then my older girls, they play a lot of sports, so I'm always trying to make sure that I drive them to the sports. Hey, why don't you set up like a hangout, go somewhere, go do something. So this way they're connecting on a very physical level instead of through the social media because that could be very daunting on a person's mood, their attitude throughout the day, especially teenagers. So
Yeah. Kids are supposed to be with each other and
yeah,
playing. And that's also really shifted in society. If you notice, years ago, it was like, go play, like, go
yeah,
figure it out. Now everything is so adult driven.
yep,
It's like, oh, we're doing a play group at my house and I prepared a snack and I prepared a game for them. And it's like, parents shouldn't be that involved in play. Play is actually, it's so crucial for development. It's
it
how they
is.
figure out how to interact with each other, how to problem solve on their own without constantly an adult stepping in.
Yeah,
I talk with parents a lot because they feel like they're constantly trying to break up sibling fights and stuff. And I always say, like, let them argue, let them fight. As long as there's no bloodshed, like, stay out of the way. Because
yeah,
this is how they learn to problem solve. This is how they learn communication skills. And that is something a lot of these kids no longer have. They don't know how to do anything.
you're right.
And as parents, the parents always say to me, how do I build my child's self-confidence? Self-confidence is a huge issue lately. And I say they have to be able to do things on their own.
Yeah,
No child is going to be confident if they don't even know how to make, a grilled cheese sandwich for themselves and they're 17. They have to be able to do things on their own. So always, even if you're ordering a pizza or something, make them do it.
yeah, yeah. It's funny that you're bringing that up because I literally have been so I have some social anxieties from when I was a kid. Obviously we all come with childhood trauma. Our kids are going to have it too, I'm sure, on some level. So as a kid, one of the things that my dad always made me do was order my own food. And
Right.
this started really young, like
Yeah.
4. And I was afraid to talk to people, and I didn't want to talk to an adult. So for me, I implemented some of that a little bit older than 4, maybe like 8 or 9. Um, but it begs this question: Are we, as a generation, do you think that our childhood anxieties have sort of caused us to become these parents have to be so involved in our kids' lives to the point where we're taking away their independence, their power?
I don't know if it's because of childhood anxiety. I do think it's actually due to social media because even as
Really?
parents, we're on social media and it's like, oh, well, this kid's doing this. And like you see and you compare, and then you are constantly worried that your kid's not enough. And then you're constantly, trying to move them forward, dragging and
Yeah.
kicking and screaming often. And the other thing that we're constantly seeing on social media, you used to watch like the 6 o'clock news and that was really it. Now we see news constantly. And the parents of this generation are very fearful. Like all of a
Yes.
sudden I'm hearing about kids not allowed to drive, even though they have their license, or not allowed to go to the mall because what if there's a shooting? We have become very fearful as parents. And that has really raised the anxiety level of our children. So again, I think it's a lot because we're constantly seeing the negative and the bad, and we think this world is so dangerous. And also this massive desire to try to get our kids to be the best, and we could post about all their achievements. And I
Yeah.
really say, like, take a step back from that because you're driving yourself crazy and you're driving your kids crazy too.
So, you know, so this is important. This is a really important topic because um, as we drive our own anxieties, we're driving our children's anxieties, right? You just like said that. But now the other question becomes, we have this bad habit. It's obviously bad. It's negative. It's impacting everything that we're doing in life, and even our own careers. It's impacting that. How do we take a step back? Do we, ban social media for ourselves? Do we try? Is it more like an addiction that we need to recover from? See, this is what I'm worried about, even for the next generation.
Yeah, I don't love the idea of banning anything. I really feel like, we need to have a little bit of free will. But I know for adults, I really think you need to pull back and say, why am I on this? What is the goal? What is the purpose? And every time you post, why am I posting this? Is there a reason?
So you're talking about, so basically it's like posting with, purpose.
Yeah,
Not just to post.
not
Don't
just
just go on
more.
there and post randomly all day long, every, couple of hours. Just
Right.
post with purpose if you're going to do it.
I always ask myself that. So I post a lot for work, and it's normally like educational material and stuff like that. And then every once in a while, I will post something that like me and my family do. And it's very mindful. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to do like 5 work posts, I'm going to do one more personal post. And that's more like a metric for, my work and stuff. But I'm always very careful about what I'm posting regarding my children as well. I really don't post much about them at all at this point.
It's very nerve-wracking to post. And I will say this, I have cleaned up my social media in terms of people who follow me, in terms of people who
Mhm.
I follow, not just to remove the negativity because there's a lot of that on social media, right? And but also to remove what I call toxic positivity.
Yeah,
Sometimes you don't want to see how much better everyone else is doing. You just want to be in your own lane. So
absolutely.
I'm very mindful of what I post as well, but I do want to say it's very difficult to sometimes catch yourself and
It is.
stop.
It is. You
So,
really, again, you have to be like very mindful with it. And I talk to my kids about that too. And I always say, like, notice the people who are posting their entire life. What do you think they need? What do you
yeah.
think they're trying to get? Notice the people who are posting their constant vacation pictures.
Yeah.
What do you think they're trying to do behind that? And we really talk about that.
It's so funny that you just said vacation actually, and I just got back from Europe. So I did 2 weeks with my husband, 10-year anniversary. We did that. It was Greece and Italy. And I was looking through my photos and I said to my husband, I'm like, I really didn't take that many photos. And he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I think I enjoyed myself a lot, and I didn't want to even take a look at my phone to see what, unless it was the kids calling or texting, because it was just the two of us. And I was like,
Oh, how
I
nice.
don't, I didn't think I wanted to deal with anything other than just being and enjoying.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important message to give out to everyone, to try to just enjoy the moment without the social media. It is
Yeah.
totally freeing. Just realizing like little photos I took, right?
Being in the moment is so important. And that's something, when you're in the moment, you really don't have anxiety because normally right in the moment, there's nothing to worry about.
That's right. So
It's
how do
when
we deal
we're,
with that guilt? Like how do we get rid of that guilt for not posting, Like, cuz that's a real thing too. I feel guilty for not posting today, especially as entrepreneurs. Like how do
yeah,
we not?
right. And I think, again, you have to take a step back and say, what am I guilty for?
Yeah,
For having my own boundaries?
boundaries. What are
Boundaries.
those?
Right. Boundaries are so important. Like, I don't need to tell the world everything. I don't need to post everything. I don't need to constantly engage my audience because I don't want to.
These are I love that phrase because I don't want to.
I don't want to.
I don't think many of us get to say that
No. And I've had a lot of, social media people tell me like, oh, you need to be posting X amount of times a day. And I was like, no, I don't want to. So I'm going to show up who I am, and either people are going to follow me or they're not.
That's a very healthy attitude, I will say that. Geez, I wish I would have met you like 4 years ago when I first started. I had to learn that the hard way, which I'm
Or-
sure many people are, they're
yeah.
doing right now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You're constantly learning, and that's okay. And you're constantly evolving.
So let me ask you this question. I read your bio. You have a workbook that you're coming out with for teens, right?
Yes,
Let's
it's
talk about
out.
that.
Yes, it's out.
It's
It's
out
a
already?
project. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So tell me about it. I want to know all about it.
So my first book, Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know, it's broken into 5 physical and 5 mental health habits
Okay.
that you need. They're like the foundation of mental health for not only the parent, but also for them to teach the child. And then what started happening was that parents were like, I love the book, but then like my teenager doesn't want to talk to me about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make a book for the teenagers that they could go and do it on their own, and they could have their own process with it. So it's based on the same 10 principles. It's Mental Health Uncensored, 10 Foundations Every Teen Needs to Know. And it's a workbook, and it takes them through all of these different things. One of them is like, are you hydrated? Because we know the research behind hydration and anger and focus. And I talk about all of that like on their level, so they get why it's important. And then how much water do you need? And then I do a whole 30-day tracking system so they really can, keep themselves accountable. And I do that with sleep. I do that with food. I do that with boundaries, with goal setting, with friendships, like all of this type of stuff. I really make them take a step back and look at and reevaluate.
That's pretty amazing. And you just launched this?
That one came out, I think, a few months ago. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. Okay, so I definitely need to know about that so I can share that with my 2 teenagers and maybe they'll actually talk to me again in the future.
Right. Yes. All my books are available on Amazon. And they're all under the Mental Health Uncensored.
So now I have the next question for you about these. So you have a book,
Mhm.
you have one for parents, you have a workbook for teens. When is the one for children coming out? Like elementary school children, middle school children? When are those coming out?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I just gave you your next project.
Well, it's funny 'cause I've actually been asked a lot to do one for the 20-year-olds. I see a lot of children
Really?
in my office at this point. It's a big transition. And unfortunately, they don't always have the skills they need to really go out into the world.
That's true. I will
Yeah.
say that.
So I'm actually getting a lot of requests to do a book for them.
Ooh,
And I
I'm
do
excited.
that age group as well. So
So I want to know when that one comes out too. So I need to get an email.
yeah,
I'm going to sign up for your notifications.
follow me on Instagram.
Well, you know what it is that my daughter's headed to college. She's leaving in a few months.
Yeah.
Well, it's July, so she's actually leaving in a month, and she's going down to the University of Delaware. And I, as a parent, feel
Mhm.
this is how I feel because I know a lot of parents are like, "Oh no, my kid's totally ready." I feel like maybe she thinks she's ready, and I tried my very best to set her up to be ready, but I feel like I'm fearful and have this anxiety for her not being able to transition from home life to college life on my own, totally different state, paying my own bills, needing to get a job, etc. So, is that something that I'm assuming most parents go through? I
Yeah.
hope. I hope I'm
Yeah.
not the only one.
Yeah. No, I think that's a pretty common concern when we send our kids off to college.
But
And what
how
I
do we
always
set them up for success in college without the social media, without the anxieties? Because I feel like that's something that resonates with the 20-year-old group, right? Where they're trying to figure out life.
absolutely, I always say, start with making them do more and more for themselves. Like every kid who's going off to college, they should be doing their own laundry at home. Laundry is like my favorite thing to make kids do, because if they don't do it, it only impacts them, no one else in the household.
Yeah.
They have dirty clothes. It's on them. But I say like as soon as your kid can physically work the washing machine, they should be doing their own laundry. And you should not
Okay.
be reminding them. Like it has to be just, here's how to do it, go do it. So parents should not be like, did you do your laundry? Did you do your laundry? Like let them figure it out. So like those types of things, like they should be able to do their own laundry. They should be able to make basic meals. They should be able to grocery shop. They should be able to order things, make doctor's appointments, whatever. All that stuff is really necessary. And also in school, one of the worst things schools have done is allow parents to see what is missing and what the current grades are instead of
Yeah,
just waiting for a report card to come out. Because then what happens is the parents are on top of the kids. You need to email this teacher. You need to go do this. You forgot this.
you
How
sound
are
like
they
me.
supposed to then handle it in college?
You're
So
right.
I tell parents, back out. Do not get involved in high school on looking on what there's missing or anything like that. Just check the report cards.
It's so funny that you say that because I literally I'm laughing about it because I just went through this past year with my 16-year-old about to be 17-year-old. She was like, I just want to drop out of high school. And I was like, why? And she was like, because it's hard. I said, well, yeah, high school's hard. And then college is hard. And then life continues to be hard. But you just have to pick what you think you're good at and try to stick with it and work hard. And sometimes you're going to fail, but how you pick yourself up after is what really matters. And then I made a promise to her that I would leave her alone. Listen, you're grown enough to take care of your own homework. I'm not going to check your grades except for when you get a report card. And I feel like she blossomed underneath that.
They do. So that's what parents don't understand. They're so scared to let go of that control. And I tell them all the time, one of two things is going to happen. One is they're either going to realize, oh, wow, this is on me. And they're going to actually do better than what you
Yeah.
expected. Or two, they are going to completely fail. And thank goodness we know it now and not in college.
Yeah, you're right. It's much cheaper now.
I'd much rather them have them make mistakes now and figure it out now rather than in college.
Yeah. I had that exact same issue. I actually had really bad anxiety for my two older daughters when they were about 15, 16. Like the one was just this past year, and I was really nervous. It was causing me to like age early, and I could see
Ah,
it everywhere. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, I cannot be this parent. Like I have to let it go so they can function as adults when they get out of here, which is really soon.
yeah.
And I had like a I wouldn't say a nervous breakdown, but like a pep talk and then a boundary and then another pep talk because I kept falling back into that old role of trying to control everything for them. And it was really hard. It was a battle within myself trying to fix that.
It's such a battle. It's so hard. And when we try to be over involved as parents, they do what they should be doing, which is they push us away
Mhm. Mhm.
because they are trying to gain their own independence. That is developmentally what is appropriate for them. They need to be doing things on their own. So they are battling us. And then it's just damaging our relationship with them. And they're not doing well anyway. I always tell parents, like, you're going to be amazed when you actually just let them do it on their own, how they do it.
You're right. And I think that we also have to stop being so critical of ourselves and of them expecting them to do things how we do them or how we did them as teens.
They are not going to do it the same way as us. They may do it really differently. And that's not a reflection of us as parents. Like, I think we
Ugh,
tie our own self esteem to them so much,
yeah.
but we're all on a different path and we all figure it out at different times as well. And to give them that space to kind of figure it out. And that's hard. That's hard to watch, especially when, like, they're about to go to college and you're like, I don't think they have a college list. And like, I have to sit back and be like, okay, it's going to be okay. Because they figure it out. But they need the space to do it. And they need to know that if something goes wrong, we're here to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're here to help guide. We just can't do it for them.
It's so good to hear someone else say that out loud because I thought I was going insane. I'm like, Am I doing the right thing by letting go? Did I let go too soon?" Like we always second guess ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's not a healthy thing to do, but it's something that I see a lot of parents do is second guess ourselves all the time. I think that's natural, but I think a lot of it has to do with our anxieties and what we're seeing happen on social media. I think it's all linked.
It really is. And it's about us understanding that we've done enough. We've done a good job. I had this one parent recently and her daughter was about to go off to college and she was just a nervous wreck. And she was like, she can't do this and she can't do that. And I was like, take a step back. You've raised a great kid.
Yeah.
She's got it. And she was like, okay. You?
Sometimes we have to hear from other
Yeah.
people, from someone outside of our immediate circle, because we often don't believe it ourselves. We
Right.
we're like struggling the whole time trying to just keep the family together, keep the glue, do this, do that, trying to raise these great kids, and then when they finally get to that age, we're just like, how do I let go now? It
Yeah.
feels like we're letting go of an infant, but we're really not, and it, it's so empowering and very scary at the exact same time.
Yeah. But, as I always tell kids, like, trust yourself, trust your gut. I always tell parents the same thing, like, trust yourself. Like, you've done it. You've done a good job. Like, it's okay.
I wonder how many parents are listening to this and then they're going to be like, how do I do that? How do I let go? How did they let go? I guess maybe let's talk about that. That's a good point. How does a parent let go slowly or in any way? Any tip you can provide? Because honestly, I think we all need to hear from other parents sometimes.
So I want to change the language. I don't want to say let go. I want to
Okay.
say just let them create their own path
Okay.
because that feels different.
I get it.
We don't ever want to let go of our kids. They're our kids. We want to hold them forever and, always be right there, and that's fine. But how do we let them just travel on their own path and know that throughout the years, we have really built a foundation where they have the skills, they have the ability, and they have the relationship with us to know that if things go bad, we're here for them. That's what it really is. It's letting them kind of just forge their own path.
Okay, so I want to give you a scenario.
Hmm.
And I want you to maybe try to help maybe other parents who have gone through the scenario, how maybe they can handle that with their teenager. I say teenager because it seems to be the more
Yeah.
difficult time in a parent's lives, boy or girl, you know.
Mhm.
So I had my teenager a couple years ago tell me that she was so angry about not having her phone because I had taken her phone. She was just like failing in school. And
Mhm.
I just panicked and I was like, you know what? We're done with the phone. You're grounded for a week, no phone. And then she just she shut me down and then she like threw a fit and then she wouldn't talk to me for an entire week and then she decided she was going to fail that semester but not for herself but for me like as punishment, which we later talked about and discussed later on, but it was like she was punishing me with her grades. So
Yeah.
how do you walk a parent through handling that?
So a few things. One is I rarely take phones as punishments.
Okay.
Even though it makes sense, it doesn't.
Okay,
So
tell me, teach
like
me.
them failing, when I have a kid who's really doing poorly in school, we talk about many things. One is like, do they need a tutor? Is it really just like a challenging subject for them? And then let's get them the support they need. Two, are they really just not interested? Okay. Can we maybe find something else they're interested in and maybe just know that if they just pass the class, that's good enough? Uh,
Okay.
so that's, part of it too. It's like, for us to tell our kids, like, you need to be doing well in school, for a lot of them, it's like, well, why? Why if I don't like any of this stuff? Why if this is all stupid to me? Okay, what do you like? Let's try to get you involved in some other activities and some other interests that you do like. And then, like, just focus on doing enough in school. They don't need to be straight A students. And
You're
the
right
other
about
thing is,
that.
a lot of kids are not straight A students, and it's a struggle for them to be straight A students. And I have parents all the time being like, they're smart enough to be getting an A. Yeah, but that requires them to study for 5 hours and it's not worth it to them.
Yeah. They value their time much differently.
They do. I talk in my book about like me and, growing up and everything. And the end result was I have a master's from an Ivy League university. The beginning result was that I almost failed out of high school because I
Okay.
hated it. It was stupid and it didn't make sense. And it wasn't until I got to college, and I did not go to any sort of like, well ranked college at all, that I took psychology classes and social work classes. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I like dove in and I did really, really well.
So you found something you were passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you made me right now go back to high school and say, like, take Spanish, I would fail because it's hard.
I get that. I
So
was the
that's
same
the other
way.
thing. We can't expect these kids to be all in and studying all day long for stuff that they don't really care about. And it's like, for what cost? They're all going
Yeah.
to get into college if they have decent grades.
That's true too. It's not like they're turning kids away anyway. They need our money,
They
so
need your money. You're a consumer. You're all going to get into college. The nonsense of the rankings is a whole other thing that parents get too wrapped up in. It doesn't matter. It honestly just doesn't matter. Your kid needs to go to whatever college they're going to be able to have a good experience at, pursue their interests, and enjoy.
I like your point of view. It's a really important one to have. And I think from talking with you, I've definitely learned a lot. Definitely learned not to take the phone anymore, but I learned that like last year. I learned the whole, not pushing them so hard for the grades. Just try to get through and we'll work on the rest when you find something you're interested in. I learned that one the hard way too, but I learned it. So I like the fact that you're telling me all of those things. Is first it makes me feel good that I went from a mistake to something positive, and then I think it lets parents know that they could do the same thing. That if there's a mistake or something they didn't do well, they can still successfully parent and make the things better as they move forward.
And that's about, when we get into that loop of comparing ourselves with others and our kids to other kids, everyone's on their own path. And we just need to be able to be okay with that, even though it sounds really scary.
It is so scary.
I worked with a kid who dropped out of college and the parents were like, and I was like, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And he actually just landed his dream job, which he did not need a college education for.
Well, good for him.
Yeah.
You know, I- the landscape has changed so dramatically in just the last 5 years alone, especially because of COVID, because now everything can be done virtually on a computer. I'm surprised there's even college campuses left anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, well, they're fun.
Well, I love this conversation with you, and I would love to have another conversation with you in the future. But now I want you to tell everyone who's going to be listening where we can find you. How do we buy your books? Because I need to buy everything that's coming from you. I have two more kids that I need to worry about parenting. So tell me everything. How do I get to you? How do I talk to you? How do I
Yep.
buy it?
My website is kericooperholistictherapy.com and it's KERI. You can find me on Instagram at Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy, though I don't post all that much.
For good reasons.
For good reasons. And my books are on Amazon. They're Mental Health Uncensored. And one is 10 Foundations Every Parent Needs to Know. And the other one is 10 Foundations Every Teen Needs to Know. And it's a workbook.
I'm totally going to be needing to buy those like ASAP because I need to be able to read those and learn. I'm a big learner. Keri, I just want to tell you thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and for teaching me things and for letting me know that I didn't totally screw up my kids. That was good to hear. And I know that there are going to be many, many parents who are going to love this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And there you have it, super parents. Another episode packed with joy, wisdom, and all the parental love in the universe. Remember to swoop back here every Wednesday for more parenting delights. Stay connected with our vibrant community on Instagram and Twitter at atomic_mommy. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube for more fantastic videos designed with you in mind. Craving more tips, guides, and the coolest parenting merch? Visit www.atomicmommy.com where the fun never ends.